Ella, Ethan, listen to me carefully. Naomi Carter crouched in front of her 6-year-old twins and held both of their hands. You must stay inside this room until Mommy returns. Do not open the door for anyone. Do not walk into the corridor. I'll be back as quickly as I can. Ella nodded solemnly. Ethan raised one finger. What if there's an emergency? The only emergency is if one of you is hurt. What about hunger? He asked. Hunger is not an emergency. Ethan glanced at the chocolate bar sticking out of Naomi's uniform pocket. It feels like one. Naomi almost smiled, but an urgent announcement echoed through the hospital. Neonatal emergency. All available neonatal nurses report to Ward 7. Naomi's smile disappeared. She kissed both children, hurried out of the unused consultation room, and locked the door behind her. But 20 minutes later, when she returned, the room was empty. The window was closed. Their coats were still on the chairs. Ella's teddy bear was gone, and the door Naomi distinctly remembered locking was standing slightly open. Ella. Silence. Ethan. Her heart began pounding. Before Naomi could decide which direction to search, her phone rang. It was Director Han, her supervisor. Do you have 2 children inside this hospital? The woman demanded. Naomi's blood ran cold. I can explain. Then explain why they are inside Mr. Seo's executive office. Naomi stopped breathing. Every employee at Myri Medical Center knew Seo Tae-hyun. The billionaire CEO had dismissed senior doctors for entering his office without permission. He rarely smiled, never tolerated interruptions, and had once ended an entire board meeting because someone's phone rang twice. Director Han, please, save your explanation. You broke hospital policy, abandoned 2 children, and allowed them to disturb the most powerful man in this company. Go and collect them before security does. Then clear out your locker. Naomi lowered the phone slowly. The job she had crossed an ocean to accept was gone. The salary paying her husband's debts was gone. And her children were trapped inside the office of a man the entire hospital feared. Naomi ran. She reached the executive floor breathless and pushed through Tae-hyun's office door without knocking. What she saw brought her to a complete stop. Ethan was lying across a leather sofa with one hand pressed dramatically against his forehead. I require emergency chocolate treatment, he announced. Ella stood beside Seo Tae-hyun with a toy stethoscope around her neck. Her teddy bear was positioned on his expensive glass desk. And Tae-hyun, the cold Korean billionaire who had not touched a stethoscope in 15 years, was kneeling beside the teddy bear, carefully examining its stomach. I'm afraid the patient has eaten too many imaginary biscuits, he said. Ella shook her head. That is not the correct diagnosis, Dr. Tae. Then I may require a second opinion. You require more training. For one suspended moment, nobody noticed Naomi standing in the doorway. Tae-hyun was smiling, not the restrained smile he used for cameras or investors. This was warm, unguarded laughter that transformed his entire face. Naomi could only stare. How had her twins brought joy into the life of a man who had spent 15 years refusing to enter a children's ward? Why had the CEO of one of Korea's largest hospital networks abandoned medicine before treating his first patient? And what secret had Naomi's late husband left behind that could destroy the man who controlled Tae-hyun's entire life? Stay with us, because the 2 children who entered that office looking for chocolate were about to reopen a tragedy someone had worked very hard to bury. Before we continue, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional Afro-Korean story. And tell us in the comments, what country are you watching from? Now, let us return to the beginning, 4 months earlier, when Naomi Carter stood beside her husband's grave with 2 children holding her hands and a letter from Seoul hidden inside her handbag. Rain darkened the shoulders of her black coat. Ella stood quietly on her left, clutching the teddy bear her father had given her before his final night in the hospital. Ethan held Naomi's right hand and stared at the fresh flowers they had placed on the grave. "Is Daddy cold under there?" he asked. Naomi's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart." "How do you know?" "Because he isn't really under there anymore." Ethan looked up at her. "Where is he?" Naomi glanced at the gray London sky. "He is somewhere pain cannot reach him." She wished she could say the same about the 3 people he had left behind. David Carter had been a loving father and a gentle husband. But after his death, Naomi discovered another side of his life: unpaid loans, unexplained transfers, and documents from a medical company he had never mentioned. The debt collectors did not care that she was grieving. They cared that her name appeared beside his on their apartment lease and 2 accounts. Within 6 months, Naomi had sold their car, moved the twins into a single room in her aunt's house, and taken every additional hospital shift she could find. Still, the money was not enough. Then the letter from Myrie Medical Center arrived. They were expanding their neonatal department in Seoul and wanted experienced international nurses. The salary was more than twice what Naomi earned in London. Housing would be provided for the first year, and the twins could attend a nearby international school at a reduced cost. It felt less like an opportunity than a door opening inside a room that had run out of air. Her aunt disagreed. "You know nobody in Korea," she warned. "You'll be alone with 2 children." "I'm already alone." The answer sounded colder than Naomi intended, but it was true. 3 weeks later, she boarded a plane with 2 suitcases, 2 frightened children, and David's old metal document box. She had never found the key to it, but something had prevented her from throwing it away. On their first night in Seoul, the twins slept together on a mattress in their small company apartment. Naomi remained beside the window, looking at a city illuminated by signs she could not read. She pressed one hand against the glass. "Please," she whispered, "let this be our new beginning." Across the city, Seo Tae-hyun was standing inside an empty operating theater. He visited it only at night. 15 years earlier, Tae-hyun had been one of the brightest medical students at Seoul National University. He could identify complex conditions faster than students several years ahead of him. His professors believed he would become a gifted surgeon. His younger sister, Soo-jin, believed it more than anyone. Whenever she became sick, she refused to let anyone examine her until Tae-hyun placed his stethoscope against her chest. "My brother is going to be the greatest doctor in Korea," she would proudly tell their mother. But Tae-hyun never became a doctor. During his final year of medical school, Soo-jin collapsed at a family gathering. Tae-hyun was the first person to reach her. He felt for a pulse, heard the panic around him, and froze. For 11 seconds, his mind went completely blank. By the time he began helping her, an ambulance was already on its way. Soo-jin died later that night. His uncle, Chairman Seo, found him sitting outside the emergency room. "If you had acted faster," the older man said, "your sister might still be alive." That sentence ended Tae-hyun's medical career. He abandoned his training and entered the family business, eventually transforming Myrie Medical Center into a global hospital network. He built children's wards, funded research, and purchased equipment that saved thousands of lives. But he never treated a single patient. He rarely entered the pediatric wing, and he kept his old stethoscope locked inside a glass cabinet in his office. Chairman Seo remained beside him throughout his rise, presenting himself as the uncle who had saved Tae-hyun from the weakness that destroyed his sister. Tae-hyun never realized that the man comforting him was also the man most afraid he might investigate what happened that night. Naomi met Tae-hyun for the first time on her 3rd day at Myrie Medical Center. She was comforting a premature baby whose mother had not yet recovered from surgery. Naomi held the tiny child against her chest and hummed a Nigerian lullaby her own mother had sung to her. Tae-hyun was passing the ward during an inspection when he heard her voice. He stopped outside the glass. The baby's crying softened. Its tiny fingers curled around Naomi's thumb, and Naomi smiled down as though she had all the time in the world. Something about the scene pulled Tae-hyun toward the door. Then an old memory rose inside him, Soo-jin's hand gripping his wrist, the sound of their mother screaming his name, and his uncle's voice telling him he had waited too long. Tae-hyun stepped away before Naomi noticed him. Director Han noticed everything. The CEO does not like unnecessary displays, she told Naomi later. This is a hospital, not your family sitting room. The baby needed human contact. The baby needed quiet. Naomi looked toward the sleeping infant. It appears she received both. Director Han's expression hardened. You may have been respected in London, Nurse Carter, but here you are on probation. Learn when not to argue. Naomi apologized because pride could not pay rent. Over the following weeks, she worked harder than anyone on the ward. She arrived early, stayed late, and learned enough Korean phrases to comfort frightened mothers. At home, however, the twins were struggling. Ella pretended Seoul was an adventure. Ethan stopped asking when they were returning to London because he had begun to understand the answer. Every morning, Naomi dropped them at a childcare center before beginning her shift. Every evening, she was the last parent to collect them. Are we a problem? Ella asked one night. Naomi stopped removing her shoes. Why would you ask that? The childcare woman always looks upset when you come. Naomi knelt and pulled both children close. You are not a problem. You are the reason I solve problems. She promised herself that the difficult days would not last forever. But the following Monday, 3 hours before her evening shift, Naomi received a call from the childcare center. A water pipe had burst. The building was flooded and would remain closed for at least 1 week. Naomi called every babysitter whose number she had been given. 1 was unavailable. 2 were too expensive. Another refused to watch twins at such short notice. Then Director Han sent a message. Any nurse absent from tonight's inspection shift should not return tomorrow. Mr. Seo will be visiting the neonatal department personally. No excuses. ***. Naomi stared at the message, while Ella and Ethan sat on the floor building a hospital from cardboard boxes. She could stay home and lose the job keeping them afloat. Or she could take them into a hospital where children were forbidden from entering staff areas. Naomi closed her eyes. Then she reached for their coats. Where are we going? Ethan asked. Naomi looked at both children, already frightened by the decision she was making. To Mommy's workplace. Ella jumped to her feet, excitedly, but Naomi did not smile, because somewhere inside Myrie Medical Center, a locked glass cabinet held an old stethoscope, and before that night ended, one of her children was going to open it. Naomi spent the entire journey to Myrie Medical Center reconsidering her decision. Every bus stop presented another opportunity to turn around. Every time the doors opened, she imagined taking the twins home and calling Director Han with an excuse. But excuses did not pay rent. They did not settle David's debts. And they certainly did not provide the stability Naomi had promised her children when she brought them to Seoul. When they reached the hospital, Naomi crouched before Ella and Ethan outside the employee's entrance. You must do exactly what I say tonight. We know, Ella replied. We're undercover. No, you are not undercover. Ethan pulled the hood of his jacket over his head. That sounds like something an undercover person would say. Naomi gave him a warning look. This is serious. Children are not allowed in the staff area. If anyone finds you, Mommy could lose her job. The twins immediately became quiet. Naomi regretted frightening them, but she needed them to understand. She led them through the service entrance and waited until the security guard turned away before hurrying them into an unused consultation room near the neonatal ward. There were 2 chairs, an examination bed, and an old cabinet containing children's toys. Naomi placed sandwiches and juice boxes on the table. "You can draw, eat, and watch cartoons on my phone. I'll check on you whenever I can." Ella lifted her teddy bear. "Can Mr. Buttons have a checkup? You can examine him yourself. I'm not a real doctor. Neither is Mr. Buttons." Ethan climbed onto the examination bed. "What if I become sick? You are perfectly healthy. What if I become sick from boredom?" Naomi kissed his forehead. "Then your sister can prescribe you a sandwich." She made them promise not to leave and locked the door behind her. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. Naomi checked on them twice. Ella was drawing while Ethan watched cartoons with the sound turned low. Then Chairman Seo arrived unexpectedly. His presence changed the entire atmosphere of the neonatal department. Doctors straightened their coats. Nurses lowered their voices. Director Han began issuing instructions as though the hospital were preparing for a royal visit. Chairman Seo was 63, but he carried himself with the controlled confidence of a man who had spent his life ensuring nobody saw him grow older. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his smile appeared warm until one looked carefully at his eyes. Tae-hyun walked beside him, expressionless. "This expansion is costing us more than projected," Chairman Seo said as they entered the ward. "We should reconsider the charity beds." "They are not being reconsidered," Tae-hyun replied. "You cannot run a hospital on sentiment. And you cannot call it a hospital if treatment belongs only to the wealthy." Chairman Seo smiled at the employees around them, concealing his irritation. "You sound like your sister." Tae-hyun's steps slowed. His uncle knew exactly where to place a blade without drawing blood. Director Han approached them and bowed politely. "Everything is ready for your inspection." Tae-hyun's attention shifted across the ward until he saw Naomi. He remembered her immediately. She was adjusting a premature baby's blanket while explaining something gently to the frightened father standing beside the incubator. She did not look intimidated by the machines or hurried by the people waiting for her. "Who is she?" Tae-hyun asked. Director Han followed his gaze. "Naomi Carter, a new international nurse. The one who sings to patients." Director Han seemed surprised he remembered. "Yes, I have already spoken to her about maintaining professionalism." Tae-hyun turned toward her. "You reprimanded a neonatal nurse for calming a premature baby." Director Han's face tightened. "The singing could have disturbed the ward. It did not disturb me." He walked away before she could respond. Chairman Seo noticed the exchange. He noticed everything involving his nephew. Naomi kept her eyes on her patient, but she had heard enough to know the CEO had defended her. For a moment, gratitude warmed her chest. Then she remembered the twins hidden 2 corridors away, and her anxiety returned. Inside the consultation room, Ethan had eaten his sandwich, half of Ella's sandwich, and nearly all the snacks. Ella was attempting to examine Mr. Buttons with a toy medical kit she had found inside the cabinet. "He has a serious problem," she announced. Ethan looked up from Naomi's phone. "What?" "He doesn't have a heartbeat. He's a teddy bear. That is why it is serious." Ella searched through the medical kit and found a toy stethoscope with 1 earpiece missing. "This is broken. So is your patient." Ella frowned at him. "We need a real doctor. Mummy said not to leave. She also says you should help people when they're sick." "He isn't sick. He's stuffed." Ella ignored him. She tried the door and discovered that the lock had not fully caught when Naomi left. It opened with a slight push. "We're not allowed outside," Ethan warned. "We'll find a doctor and come straight back. You said that when you went looking for the bathroom in London, and we ended up in a wedding. We found the bathroom. It belonged to the bride. Ella stepped into the corridor with Mr. Buttons beneath her arm. Ethan hesitated before following. He knew leaving was wrong, but allowing his sister to wander through a foreign hospital alone felt worse. They passed a nurse's station, avoided 2 orderlies, and entered an elevator before anyone could stop them. Ella pressed the highest button she could reach. The doors opened onto the executive floor. Unlike the busy wards below, this level was quiet. Sunlight passed through tall windows, and every door appeared too important for children to touch. "We should go back," Ethan whispered. Then he noticed a bowl of imported chocolates on a receptionist's empty desk. After one emergency. While Ethan filled his pockets, Ella saw a door standing open at the end of the corridor. Inside, a man sat alone behind a glass desk. Seo Tae-hyun had left the door open because the office felt unusually suffocating after his conversation with Chairman Seo. His uncle's words remained inside his mind. "You sound like your sister." Tae-hyun stared at the old stethoscope, locked behind glass. He had considered removing it many times, but doing so felt too much like admitting that the young man who once owned it would never return. A small voice interrupted him. "Are you a doctor?" Tae-hyun looked toward the door. A little black girl stood there holding a teddy bear. A boy with the same face stood behind her, chewing suspiciously. For several seconds, Tae-hyun said nothing. Children did not enter this office. Most adults entered only after making an appointment weeks in advance. "How did you get up here?" he asked. "The elevator," Ethan answered. Ella walked closer. "My brother took your chocolates." Ethan stopped chewing. "I was checking them for poison." Tae-hyun stared at them. Then, against every expectation he had of himself, he almost smiled. "You still haven't answered my question." Ella said, "Are you a doctor?" "No." She pointed at the cabinet. "Then why do you have a stethoscope?" Tae-hyun's eyes followed her finger. "It belonged to somebody else." "Can we borrow it?" "No. Mr. Buttons is sick. He appears to be a teddy bear." That's what Ethan said, but he isn't a doctor either. Ella approached the cabinet and examined the lock. Tae-hyun expected to feel irritated. Instead, he found himself studying the confidence with which she had entered a stranger's office and decided his afternoon belonged to her. "What is wrong with your patient?" he asked. "He has no heartbeat." "That is common among teddy bears." "Have you examined many?" Tae-hyun finally smiled. "No, he would be my first." Ella placed Mr. Buttons on his desk. "Then you need the stethoscope." Tae-hyun looked at the key resting inside his drawer. His fingers did not move. Suddenly, he was 24 again, kneeling beside Soo-jin while relatives screamed around him. His breathing changed. Ethan noticed. The boy abandoned the remaining chocolates and walked closer. "Mummy says you should breathe slowly when something scares you." Tae-hyun looked at him. "I'm not frightened." "My mummy says that too." Ethan demonstrated a slow breath. For reasons Tae-hyun could not explain, he copied him. Once, then again. The room slowly returned around him. He opened the drawer, removed the key, and unlocked the cabinet for the first time in 15 years. The stethoscope felt heavier than he remembered. Ella placed it around his neck. "There," she said. "Now you look like a doctor." The word struck somewhere deep inside him. Tae-hyun sat beside Mr. Buttons and pressed the chest piece against the teddy bear's stomach. "I'm afraid this patient has eaten too many imaginary biscuits." Ella shook her head. "That is not the correct diagnosis, Dr. Tae. Then I may require more training." While Tae-hyun examined the teddy bear, Ethan stretched across the sofa and demanded emergency chocolate treatment. That was how Naomi found them. She stood in the doorway, unable to reconcile the man before her with everything she had heard about him. Tae-hyun was on the floor. Ella had placed a paper crown on his head. Ethan was laughing so hard he nearly rolled off the sofa, and the CEO was laughing with them. Naomi's relief lasted only 1 second before fear returned. Ella, Ethan, the twins froze. Tae-hyun looked up. Naomi rushed forward. I am terribly sorry, sir. They were supposed to stay inside the consultation room. I didn't have childcare, and Director Han said anyone who missed tonight's shift shouldn't return. I know I broke the rules. Please don't blame them. You brought your children into the hospital secretly. Naomi lowered her eyes. Yes, sir. And left them alone. The judgment in his voice cut deeply because it echoed every accusation Naomi already made against herself. I had no other choice. There is always a choice. Naomi's head lifted. That is easy to say when every choice available to you comes with money. The room became silent. Naomi immediately realized she had spoken to the hospital's owner as though he were an unreasonable colleague. I apologize. Tae-hyun studied her. He should have been angry. Instead, he remembered Ethan teaching him to breathe, and Ella placing the stethoscope around his neck without asking what failure had made him abandon it. Director Han believes you should be dismissed, he said. Naomi pulled the twins closer. I understand. I don't. She looked at him. Tae-hyun removed the paper crown, but kept the stethoscope around his neck. You were told you would lose your job if you stayed home with your children. So you came to work. That sounds like a failure in our employee support system, not a failure in your commitment. Naomi could barely believe what she was hearing. You're not firing me? No. Ethan raised his hand from the sofa. Does that mean we can keep the chocolates? No. Naomi and Tae-hyun answered simultaneously. The twins giggled. Tae-hyun instructed his assistant to arrange emergency childcare for them in an unused family room. Then he turned to Naomi. We will discuss this properly tomorrow. Yes, sir. As Naomi led the twins away, Ella looked over her shoulder. Goodbye, Dr. Tae. Tae-hyun did not correct her. When the door closed, he looked down at the stethoscope hanging against his chest. Chairman Seo was standing outside the office. Neither Tae-hyun nor Naomi had noticed him arrive, but the chairman had witnessed enough. He had seen the stethoscope. He had seen his nephew laughing. Most importantly, he had seen the black nurse who had somehow persuaded Tae-hyun to touch the one object Chairman Seo needed him to fear forever. That evening, Chairman Seo ordered Director Han to bring him Naomi's complete employment file. Across the city, Naomi was helping the twins prepare for bed when Ethan dragged David's old metal document box from beneath her suitcase. Mummy, something is moving inside. That's impossible. I heard it. Naomi lifted the box. Something slid beneath the papers inside. Ella examined the small lock. Dr. Tae had a key for his box. Naomi stared at the metal container. Then, for the first time, she noticed a faded symbol stamped beneath the handle. It was the emblem of Myrie Medical Center. Her late husband had died in London. He had never told her he knew anyone in Korea. Yet somehow, years before Naomi received the job that brought her to Seoul, David Carter had possessed a locked box belonging to Seo Tae-hyun's hospital. Naomi did not sleep that night. She sat at the small kitchen table with David's metal box in front of her while the twins slept in the next room. The emblem beneath its handle was faded, but unmistakable. It was the same silver bird displayed above every entrance to Myrie Medical Center. Naomi turned the box over, searching for a second mark or hidden opening. There was nothing except the small lock she had never been able to open. Why had David owned something belonging to a Korean hospital? During their 9 years together, he had never mentioned Myrie Medical Center. He had worked as a financial accountant for several healthcare companies, but most of his assignments had been in Britain. At least, that was what he told her. Naomi considered forcing the lock, but stopped herself. Whatever was inside had survived David's death, 2 house moves, and a journey across the world. She could wait until she knew how to open it safely. At 7 the following morning, an email arrived summoning her to Tae-hyun's office. Naomi's stomach tightened. Perhaps he had reconsidered. Perhaps keeping her job had been an act of kindness he regretted once the twins were gone. When she arrived, Tae-hyun was standing beside the window. His old stethoscope was no longer around his neck, but it had not been returned to the cabinet. It rested openly on his desk. Director Han sat near him with Naomi's employment file across her lap. Chairman Seo occupied the chair opposite the desk. "Sit down, Nurse Carter," the chairman said. Naomi remained standing. "If this is about my children, the responsibility is mine." "How noble," Chairman Seo replied. "Unfortunately, nobility does not erase negligence." Tae-hyun glanced at his uncle. "I have already handled the matter. You prevented the appropriate person from handling it. The hospital belongs to me." Chairman Seo's smile thinned. "A hospital is not a playground, Tae-hyun. Children cannot wander through restricted areas because a nurse finds childcare inconvenient." Naomi controlled her anger. "It was not inconvenient, sir. The childcare center flooded, and I was told that missing my shift would cost me my job." Chairman Seo turned toward Director Han. "Did you say that?" Director Han hesitated. "I reminded the staff that the inspection was compulsory." "That is not what I asked," Tae-hyun said. Director Han looked down. "Yes, I sent the message." Tae-hyun's expression hardened. "Then Nurse Carter will not be punished for following an instruction that should never have been given." Chairman Seo leaned back. "You seem unusually invested in this woman." "I am invested in preventing capable employees from being driven out by incompetent management." Director Han's face flushed. Naomi expected the meeting to end there, but Chairman Seo opened her file. "Your late husband was David Carter." The sound of his name changed the air inside the room. "Yes." "What kind of work did he do?" "He was an accountant." "For whom?" "Several companies." "Did he ever work in South Korea?" "Not that I know of." Chairman Seo watched her carefully. Tae-hyun noticed. "Why are you asking about her husband?" "I like to know who works inside our hospital." "You have never personally reviewed a nurse's employment file before." The chairman closed it. "Perhaps I should have." He stood and walked out. Director Han hurried after him. Naomi waited until the door closed. "Mr. Seo, does your uncle know my husband?" "If he does, he chose not to tell us." Naomi looked at the emblem behind Tae-hyun's desk. "There is something I need to show you." That evening, Tae-hyun visited Naomi's apartment. He told himself it was necessary because she had refused to bring David's box into the hospital. But when Ella opened the door and threw her arms around his waist, his explanation suddenly felt less convincing. "Dr. Tae, I told you I'm not a doctor." "You own a stethoscope." "That does not make me a doctor." Ethan appeared behind her. "Do you own a fire engine?" "No." "Then you aren't a firefighter." "Thank you, Ethan." "You're welcome." Naomi stood near the kitchen, trying not to smile. The apartment was smaller than Tae-hyun expected, but it was warm. Children's drawings covered one wall. A framed photograph of David stood on a shelf. Tae-hyun studied it. The man looked vaguely familiar, but Tae-hyun could not remember where he had seen him. Naomi placed the metal box on the table. His expression changed when he saw the emblem. "This design was discontinued 12 years ago. David and I were married for 9 years. I never saw this box until after he died." "Did he leave a key?" "Not that I found." Ethan climbed onto a chair. "Maybe it's hidden." "Thank you," Naomi said. "We had not considered that." Tae-hyun picked up the box. When he tilted it, something shifted inside. Ella pointed at David's photograph. Daddy used to hide important things behind pictures. Naomi removed the frame from the shelf. Nothing was behind it. Then Ethan pressed the backing board. A tiny brass key fell onto the floor. Naomi stared at it. How did you know? Ethan shrugged. Daddy hid my birthday money there once. The key fitted the box. Inside were financial reports, copies of hospital invoices, an old identification card, and a small digital recorder. Tae-hyun lifted the identification card. David Carter had worked as an external forensic accountant for Myrie Medical Center 7 years earlier. Naomi sat down slowly. He never told me. Tae-hyun examined the invoices. Several payments had been sent to a company called Sungmin Medical Logistics. Each transfer carried Chairman Seo's authorization. At the bottom of the box was a patient file. Seo Tae-hyun. Tae-hyun stopped breathing. Naomi saw the name. Who is she? My sister. He opened the file with unsteady hands. It contained Soo-jin's original admission notes from the night she died. Tae-hyun read the first page, then the second. According to the record, the ambulance reached the family home 6 minutes later than reported. The emergency team had been redirected to collect an influential donor from a private residence before answering Soo-jin's call. The authorization code beside the change belonged to Chairman Seo. Tae-hyun stared at it. For 15 years, he told me she died because I waited 11 seconds. Naomi sat beside him. You were a frightened brother, not the emergency department. I knew what to do. You were 24 years old, and someone you loved was dying in your arms. I froze. For 11 seconds. The ambulance lost 6 minutes. Tae-hyun's eyes remained on the file. What if those 11 seconds still mattered? Naomi answered quietly. Then you were human for 11 seconds. That is not the same as being responsible for her death. No one had ever said it to him that way. Ella and Ethan had become unusually quiet. Ella approached and placed Mr. Buttons on Tae-hyun's lap. He helps when people are sad. Tae-hyun placed one hand on the teddy bear. That night, the 4 of them ate dinner together. The meal was simple, but Tae-hyun stayed long after the box had been closed. He helped Ethan build a tower from plastic cups and allowed Ella to conduct another examination. Naomi watched him relax a little more each time one of the twins laughed. When Tae-hyun finally left, he paused at the door. Thank you for trusting me. I almost didn't. Why did you? Naomi looked toward her children. Because they trust you. They are usually better judges of people than adults. Their eyes held for a moment. Something quiet passed between them. Something neither was ready to name. 2 days later, an electrical failure struck the hospital. Naomi was transporting a premature infant to the diagnostic floor when the lights flickered. The emergency power came on, but one of the main elevators stopped between floors. Inside were Naomi, Tae-hyun, a pediatric doctor, the baby and its terrified mother. The elevator jolted. The incubator's portable monitor went dark. The battery should have activated, the doctor said. It isn't responding, Naomi replied. The child's breathing became shallow. The mother began crying. My baby, please do something. Naomi opened the incubator's emergency access panel. Tae-hyun, hold this light. He froze. The dim elevator disappeared from his mind. He was back inside his parents' home, with Soo-jin on the floor and relatives shouting around him. Tae-hyun. Naomi's voice reached him through the memory. He could hear his uncle. If you had acted faster. I can't, he whispered. Naomi placed one hand against his face and forced him to look at her. Yes, you can. I don't need the CEO. I need the medical student who remembers what to do. The baby's oxygen level continued falling. Tae-hyun closed his eyes. One breath, then another. He took the light. Naomi manually supported the baby's breathing while Tae-hyun checked its pulse. His hands trembled, but they moved correctly. "Heart rate is dropping," he said. "Prepare the emergency ventilation bag." The pediatric doctor stared at him. "You know how?" "He knows," Naomi said. For the next 6 minutes, Naomi and Tae-hyun worked together while the maintenance team forced the elevator doors open. When the baby was finally transferred to emergency care, its heart rate had stabilized. Outside the ward, Tae-hyun leaned against the wall. Naomi approached him. "You did not freeze." "I did. And then you moved." Tae-hyun looked through the glass at the child he had helped save. For 15 years, he had remembered only the 11 seconds during which he failed to move. Naomi had shown him that what came after those seconds mattered too. News of the rescue spread throughout the hospital. By the end of the day, employees who had rarely heard Tae-hyun speak were calling him Dr. Seo. Chairman Seo was furious. He ordered the failed monitor removed before anyone could inspect it. The device had been purchased from Sungmin Medical Logistics, the same company listed in David's files. But one person saw the removal. Ethan, the childcare supervisor, had been leading the twins past the storage corridor when Ethan noticed 2 men pushing the monitor into a restricted room. He recognized Chairman Seo from the photograph Naomi had shown them. He also heard the chairman speaking to Director Han. "Get rid of the machine," Chairman Seo ordered. "Then search Nurse Carter's apartment." David kept records. "And I want every copy before Tae-hyun discovers what really happened to his sister." Ethan did not understand everything he heard, but he understood his mother's name. That evening, he tried to tell Naomi. Before he could finish, Director Han entered the neonatal ward with 2 security officers. "Nurse Naomi Carter," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you are accused of stealing confidential patient records from this hospital." Naomi stared at her. "That is not true. We found protected files inside your locker." The officers opened it. Several documents bearing Soo-jin's name were inside. Naomi looked across the ward and saw Chairman Seo standing behind the glass. His face was calm, almost satisfied. Tae-hyun arrived seconds later, but his uncle spoke first. "If you defend her now," Chairman Seo said quietly, "the entire board will believe she used those children to manipulate her way into your life." Naomi waited for Tae-hyun to answer. But before he could, Ethan broke free from the childcare supervisor and ran into the ward. "Dr. Tae," he shouted, "that old man is lying." Chairman Seo's smile vanished. Ethan pointed directly at him. "He said they should search our house." The entire ward fell silent. And for the first time in 15 years, Chairman Seo looked afraid. Ethan stood in the middle of the neonatal ward, pointing at Chairman Seo. "He said they should search our house," the 6-year-old repeated. "He told that lady to get rid of a machine." Chairman Seo recovered quickly. "This is absurd. Are we seriously going to accept the confused story of a child?" "He isn't confused," Naomi said. Director Han stepped forward. "Children misunderstand adult conversations all the time." Ethan shook his head. "I heard you too. You asked what would happen if Dr. Tae found the papers." Tae-hyun looked at Director Han. The color left her face. Chairman Seo turned to his nephew. "You are allowing your judgment to be clouded by a woman you barely know. She arrived here carrying stolen records, and now her children are repeating whatever she taught them to say." Naomi moved in front of Ethan. "Do not accuse my son of lying. Then explain how my niece's private medical file ended up inside your home." "My husband had it. A dead man is a convenient person to blame." Tae-hyun stepped between them. "That is enough." Chairman Seo's expression hardened. "Tae-hyun." "I said enough." The authority in his voice silenced the ward. Tae-hyun turned toward the security officers. Seal Nurse Carter's locker. Nobody touches those documents until an independent investigator examines them. Director Han lowered her eyes. And nobody enters Naomi's apartment, he continued. If anyone attempts it, contact the police. Chairman Seo gave a humorless laugh. You would turn against your own family for this woman? Tae-hyun looked directly at him. No, I am finally protecting my family from you. The chairman's confidence faltered. Tae-hyun instructed Naomi to take the twins home. He promised he would meet them there after securing the hospital records. But when Naomi reached her apartment, the front door was already open. She pulled the twins behind her. The living room had been searched. Drawers were emptied, cushions torn open, and David's belongings scattered across the floor. The metal box was gone. Naomi immediately called Tae-hyun. They've been here. Leave the building, he said. Do not touch anything. I'm coming. Naomi gathered the twins and turned toward the door. Ella stopped. Mummy, Mr. Buttons. Her teddy bear lay beneath the overturned table. As Ella picked it up, something inside the toy made a hard clicking sound. Naomi took the bear and examined a small tear along its back. David had given it to Ella during his final week in the hospital and insisted she never lose it. Naomi reached inside and pulled out a tiny memory card wrapped in paper. One sentence was written across it in David's handwriting. If anything happens to me, let the truth speak for itself. Tae-hyun arrived with the police 15 minutes later. They played the files on Naomi's laptop. The memory card contained photographs of altered invoices, copies of emergency dispatch records, and a recording of David speaking to Chairman Seo 7 years earlier. I know Sungmin Medical Logistics belongs to you, David's voice said. You have been selling outdated equipment to your own hospitals and hiding the failures. You were hired to examine accounts, Chairman Seo replied, not to interfere with matters beyond your understanding. A girl died after an ambulance was redirected for one of your donors, Seo Soo-jin, your own niece. A long silence followed. Then Chairman Seo spoke. My nephew froze before the ambulance arrived. He already believes her death was his fault. There is no reason to burden him with another explanation. You have been lying to him. I have been shaping him. Guilt made Tae-hyun obedient. It pushed him away from medicine and placed him exactly where this family needed him. Naomi covered her mouth. Tae-hyun sat completely still. The recording continued. David threatened to deliver the evidence to Korean authorities. Chairman Seo warned him that powerful people could destroy his reputation, his career, and his family. David had returned to London before releasing the evidence. Soon afterward, he became ill. Fearful that Chairman Seo was monitoring him, he concealed the files and told Naomi nothing, believing silence would keep her and the twins safe. His death had been caused by illness, but the secret had followed his family long after he was gone. Tae-hyun listened to the recording twice. For 15 years, he had allowed 11 seconds to define his entire life. Now he knew those 11 seconds had been turned into a weapon by the person he trusted most. By morning, independent investigators were inside Myrie Medical Center. The old dispatch records matched David's copies. The failed infant monitor had been recovered before it could be destroyed. Financial investigators traced millions in hospital payments to companies secretly controlled by Chairman Seo. Director Han confessed that she had planted Soo-jin's records inside Naomi's locker. In exchange for her cooperation with authorities, she revealed where the missing metal box had been taken. The hospital board called an emergency meeting. Chairman Seo entered expecting to control it, as he had controlled every crisis before. Instead, Tae-hyun was waiting with the recording. You built your life around the belief that fear makes people easier to manage, Tae-hyun told him. You were right for 15 years. Chairman Seo looked around the table. This hospital would not exist without me. It nearly stopped deserving to exist because of you. You think that nurse cares about you? She brought stolen documents into your home and used her children to reach you. Naomi did not use her children. Tae-hyun looked through the glass wall. Ella and Ethan were waiting outside with their mother. Ella waved. Ethan held up a chocolate bar he had apparently found despite repeated instructions. They reached me because I had spent 15 years hiding in a place only children were brave enough to enter. The board voted unanimously to remove Chairman Seo from every hospital position. Police officers met him outside the room. As they placed him under arrest, he looked at Tae-hyun one final time. You are making a mistake. Tae-hyun shook his head. No, I made the mistake when I believed you. Chairman Seo was charged with fraud, evidence tampering, bribery, and obstruction of an investigation. Director Han lost her position and professional license. Naomi's name was publicly cleared. But Tae-hyun did more than restore her job. He invited her to help establish an international neonatal family support program providing emergency childcare, temporary housing, and financial assistance to hospital employees and struggling parents. No nurse should have to choose between caring for patients and protecting her own children, he said. Naomi accepted, but only after insisting that she would continue working directly with babies. I did not become a nurse to sit behind a desk. I suspected you would say that. And I will not accept special treatment. Tae-hyun glanced at the twins, who had turned his office into a miniature hospital. I believe special treatment has already taken control of the building. In the months that followed, Tae-hyun returned to medical training. He did not pretend the lost years had never happened. He began slowly, attending clinical refresher courses and observing experienced doctors. The first time he entered the pediatric ward, Naomi walked beside him. He stopped at the door. You don't have to do everything today, she told him. Tae-hyun looked through the glass at children drawing, playing, and waiting for treatment. Yes, he said. I do have to enter. He stepped inside. Ella and Ethan were waiting with 2 toy stethoscopes. The staff surprised him with a white coat embroidered with the words, Dr. Seo Tae-hyun. Ella handed him one of the toy stethoscopes. Now you have enough training to examine Mr. Buttons. Ethan raised his chocolate bar. And to prescribe emergency treatment. Tae-hyun laughed. This time, he did not stop himself. The months also changed the quiet space between Tae-hyun and Naomi. He became part of their ordinary lives. He helped the twins with homework, although Ethan regularly claimed his mathematics methods were too billionaire. He learned how Naomi liked her tea, and discovered she hummed whenever she was worried. Naomi learned that Tae-hyun became silent when he was afraid, not because he did not care, but because he cared so deeply that words sometimes failed him. One evening, they returned to the executive office where the twins had first found him. Ella and Ethan were building another cardboard hospital on the floor. Tae-hyun stood beside Naomi at the window. For years, I thought becoming close to people only gave life more ways to hurt me, he said. And now I know being alone was hurting me already. Naomi turned toward him. I cannot promise that loving us will never frighten you. I would be worried if it didn't. He took her hand. I don't want to rescue you, Naomi. You never needed rescuing. I want to stand beside you while you build the life you came here to find. Naomi's eyes filled. That sounds suspiciously like a romantic speech, Dr. Seo. I have been receiving training. She laughed, and he kissed her gently. From beneath the desk, Ethan groaned. We can see you. Ella covered Mr. Button's eyes. He is too young for romance. 1 year later, Tae-hyun completed the first stage of his return to clinical medicine. He continued leading Myri Medical Group, while spending several days each month working under supervision in the pediatric department. The hospital opened the David Carter Family Center in honor of the man whose courage exposed the truth. At the opening ceremony, Naomi stood beside a photograph of her late husband. "You protected us even when I didn't understand what you were carrying," she whispered. "You can rest now." Tae-hyun waited several steps away, giving her the space to say goodbye. When Naomi returned to him, he knelt before Ella and Ethan. "I need your professional opinion." Ella folded her arms seriously. "About what?" Tae-hyun produced a small ring box. "I would like to marry your mother." Ethan examined the ring. "How much did it cost?" "Ethan," Naomi exclaimed, "it is an important financial question." Ella ignored her brother. "Will we all live together?" "If your mother says yes." "Will you still play hospital with us whenever I am not treating real patients?" Ella nodded. "You have our approval." Tae-hyun stood and faced Naomi. She was already crying. "I had a longer speech," he said. "You don't need it. Is that a yes?" Naomi looked at the twins, at the family center bearing David's name, and at the man who once believed 11 frightened seconds made him unworthy of being called a doctor. "Yes." Ella cheered. Ethan reached for the celebration chocolates. And when Tae-hyun pulled all 3 of them into his arms, he understood something he wished he had learned 15 years earlier. Healing did not always mean forgetting the moment that broke you. Sometimes it meant finding people who helped you continue after it. The black nurse had brought her twins to work because she had nowhere else to take them. She never imagined she would find the hospital's coldest CEO playing with them. And Tae-hyun never imagined 2 children with a teddy bear and stolen chocolates would return his laughter, uncover the truth about his sister, and lead him back to the life he was meant to live. But family does not always enter through the door you leave open. Sometimes it wanders into your office without permission, places a toy stethoscope around your neck, and reminds you who you were before fear taught you to hide. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments. Did Tae-hyun make the right decision by trusting Naomi and Ethan instead of his uncle? And which twin made you smile the most, fearless Ella or chocolate-loving Ethan? Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional Afro-Korean stories about love, healing, and unexpected families. Until next time, remember, the right people may not erase your painful past, but they can help you build a future that is stronger than it.